With the season practically over, some clubs will be going to the Club World Cup. But Manny, today we are going to do a start, bench, loan, or sell. Welcome to the recap. If you were Xavi, Manny, Alonso, who would you start, bench, loan, or sell? Let's start with Camavinga.
My boy Camavinga. I'm keeping Camavinga, but I'm keeping him on the bench. I feel he's been at his best when he comes in as a super sub.
Do we think Madrid's going to sign a midfielder, or are they going to stay with what they got?
It's looking like Florentino is set on making a Galactical signing in the middle, and usually when he wants something, he tries his best to get it.
Damn. Now let's go to another player. This one should be interesting. Arda Güler, El
I
Turco.
got, this one's kind of interesting because there's people saying like loan him out. He's being wasted on the bench, but I don't think Xabi Alonso will waste him because he has came out and said many times that he believes Arda is very special and talented, and I believe he will give him his chances. So I think he'll be in the rotation, but I think he will be coming off the bench.
Arda is talented, but I do think he needs a lot of time to be able to show that talent and at the highest level. Now, with Xavi coming in and it also being Madrid, there's expectations to win. Do you have two or three midfielders that are better than Arda that will limit his time, will limit him from getting the actual time he needs?
Currently, well, we don't know exactly what lineup, Xabi Alonso is going to go with. We don't know if there will be wingers. We don't know how many midfielders there will be, whether there'll be four midfielders, three midfielders, two midfielders. So it all depends on the lineup. But the way that I'm thinking, I think there's only going to be two pivots, which will be most likely Jude and Fede. And Arda could probably break the starting 11 as the cam, but it just all depends on the line.
Cool. So you would bench him.
Yeah, bring him in off the
Oh,
bench.
alrighty. How bad was Rudiger's injury, and how big is his recovery?
They're saying that he played the entire season injured, just with multiple injuries that he would
What a
just pick
beast.
up. But this last injury, it's supposed to keep him out of the Club World Cup, but there was a report recently that he's expected to return in time to play. So we could see Rudiger come back very soon, and I would start him.
Start him. Of course. Rudiger, you don't have a better defender. You start him. Now, this one is the interesting one. We have a club legend like Dani Carvajal. Is Carvajal getting benched by your new signing?
Me personally, if I am thinking as Xabi Alonso, I would start Trent at the right mid position, the right wing back, whatever anybody wants to call it. But, I would let Carvajal rotate there, if Trent picks up an injury, if he's fatigued, things like that. But I would also let him play right center back with those three in the back system,
So you would bench him.
most likely.
It is rumored that Madrid's gonna sign a left back, Carrera. We have Fran Garcia. What do we do with young boy Fran Garcia?
Ron Garcia, I actually do not hate keeping him. I would love for him to stay as a rotational player, so coming off the bench.
But do you think that's the correct move for him? If you're going to bring in another player, I think Carrera's only like 23, 24. He's still young. They kind of like equal in the age. If you're Fran Garcia, you're just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a backup. I'm going to be a backup player. I'm going to be a rotational player. Or would you rather leave? Like on a
You know, there's
loan or sold?
there's reports that the team wanted to move on from him and Mendy,
Uh-huh.
but neither one of them wants to move from Madrid. So if he wants to stay, that's fine. I think he'll be very efficient at the left wing back. I just don't think he would be better than Carrera, so I would bring him in off the bench.
So another bench player. Kylian Mbappe. Should we sell him?
He speaks. Kiki speaks for himself.
Let's start the boy Kylian Mbappe with the Pichichi this year, and if Xavi Alonso can get these midfielders and these wingers to give him some good through balls, give him some good crosses, he should get more goals next year.
Yeah, he gave the world a 4 month head start. He had a very rough start, and he still ended up the European Golden Boot, the La Liga Pichichi. That man speaks for himself. That talent is off the
Dude,
chart.
that man won everything this year too. It's crazy. Um, Alaba.
Alaba, does he even play football anymore, or is he a social media influencer? Because
That's a great question. That's a very good question. Manny, you're the coach. What do you do? Because you obviously you're bringing Hausen or Heisen, Dean Heisen, and then you have Asensio. But what's gonna happen with Asensio? You have Rudiger, but he is coming back from an injury. Alaba is a veteran. Yes, he's been very injury prone. He's been injured for a while. He's coming back. He doesn't look great. It seems like the club's not counting with like Vallejo, or they're going to be bringing up any youngsters. What do you do with Alaba?
you send him to Madrid's highest security prison for all the money he's robbed Madrid over the years.
Oh no! You want to sell him
Let's
then
ship him to Saudi Arabia, China, MLS,
for
wherever.
free?
Whoever wants him, I'll take a bag of chips for him. But he needs to leave my club.
Oh no, Manny. What about Jude Bellingham?
Belly goal speaks for himself.
Bellingham, this guy. All right, we're gonna start up. Fede Valverde.
Another man that I don't even need to speak about. His talent is off the charts. It's not the prettiest football, but it is something that every team needs. He
You think he's
starts.
gonna? You think he's gonna improve under Xavi Alonso?
I don't think there's a whole lot for him to improve on. You know, you could always get better technically, but I think the things that he does are essential to this team. He is the heart, he's the motor of this team, so he's starting.
And he's gonna be the captain on the field, right? Because Vasquez is out and Modric is out.
That's my copy.
Toch Many.
Chouameni, I would really like for him to start in the pivot if they don't bring any other midfielders. You know, I would start Bellingham at the center attack, and I would start Chouameni at the pivot. But you know, we don't know what the lineup is going to look like. We don't know who's coming if somebody does come. So most likely he'll come in off the bench unless they don't sign anybody. I would start him.
I would personally sell him. If you can get 60, $70 million for Toch Many, obviously Real Madrid knows how to sell. Plus, Real Madrid has a lot of like PR and hype around the players. So that kind of sometimes brings up the value. But if you can get $80 million for Toch Many, I still don't see Toch Many's abilities. I think he was better when he started at Madrid, and now he's just got lost. And half of it is not his loss. I mean, half of it is not his fault. Ancelotti did play him out of position most of the time, which don't know why. But if you're Madrid, if you can get like 80 mil, you lose 20 mil on him, it's not a bad deal. But to
No.
you, you would sell him. I mean, you would bench him.
Just to speak a little on Chouameni, you know, he was getting whistles at the Bernabeu. You know, he was
Right.
getting a lot of hate. You know, which it really wasn't completely his fault. You know, yes, he was playing poorly at the center back, but the man's never been a center back. You know, he's a defensive midfielder. He is arguably one of the best at the position,
Oof,
and
that's a stretch. That's a
and you know
stretch.
he bounced back very well. You know, there's players
He did.
that those whistles can get to them. You know, all that hate can get to them, throw them off their game. But he proved that he can play, that he deserves to be in Madrid, and I respect him a lot for that. You know, he stays.
Now, Vallejo, the guy that never really got an opportunity.
Man, I
I
think he's just a
remember, I remember when Vallejo was a bit like 3 years, 4 years ago when he was a hot prospect. When Madrid bought him, he was a very hot prospect. He didn't do that well. It was in Germany, and he came back. He did okay in Spain, but now being in Madrid's bench this season, he didn't get an opportunity at all. Manny, what would you do with Vallejo?
I can't remember exactly who we were playing. I remember we were up 3-0. The fan base has been wanting to see him for a long time. They were cheering his name, asking Ancelotti to bring him in. So, you know, Ancelotti brings him in towards the end of the match, and that man played like 2 seconds, and we almost lost that game. It's he's got to go. He's not.
Salah, ship him out for the bag of chips.
Give him the Alaba treatment. In my opinion, that is the best shot blocker in the world, and he starts.
It's crazy because after his knee injury, he's become inconsistent. Some games he's the hero, some games he can't stop to save his life. I
Yeah, but you
wonder
know,
I
that
wonder
could be mental. You know, the back line was injured. It was not a very good back line, so
right.
maybe he was letting it get to him, you know, getting upset, frustrated. That could be one of the reasons, but when Courtois is on his game, man, it's so hard to get past him.
It's gonna be interesting if Xavi does play his high press. Courtois is not like a stopper keeper or keeper stopper. Like playing ahead of his area, and if a ball comes through, he kind of go, runs and gets it and bounces it out. So it's going to be interesting to see how Courtois can adapt to that style, and if Courtois come back to being legitimately the best goalkeeper on the planet.
Yeah, you were a goalkeeper, at one point, and it takes a lot of like sneaky athleticism. You have to be very quick, very fast
Oh
with the
yeah,
reactions. That man tore his ACL. Nobody knew how he was going to come back, and I feel, he's still one of the best goalkeepers in the world, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. And if he can become consistent again, he's the best goalkeeper in the planet.
I think just
Let
giving him the confidence with a good backline, I think will do a lot for him.
Yeah, let's talk about your boy, Vinicius Jr. What are we doing with Vinicius Jr., Manny? He wants
We're
30 mil
we're
net
signing that
a year.
extension 10 times and getting back to work. He's starting.
You're, you're giving him 30 mil.
No, man, take the 20.
Oh, he wants 30 mil. He wants 30 mil, and Lamine Yamal just signed a contract for 8 mil. You tell me the
If
best player in the world, the biggest marketable player in the world, his name is Lamine Yamal, and Vinicius wants more money than that.
it's a business at the end of the day, and if he truly wants to just get paid, there's always the Saudi option. But if he wants to compete for titles, take the offer. 20 million is more than enough money to live off of and show the world that you're still arguably one of the best players.
So you're Xavi, you start him, right?
Yeah, if I'm Xavi, I'm starting him and Mbappe as the two forwards.
Mbappe, yeah. Now, a guy that we didn't see much this year, a great defender, great career, Militao.
This is a hot take. I would actually keep him off the bench if you can restructure his contract, see if he'll take a little bit less, and see how he comes back from injury. Don't rush him. Let him build his confidence back up. After two ACLs, you don't know if he's going to be able to play because, he was a player that was, pretty quick. He was aggressive. So you got to see how he bounces back. But, you let Alaba play you let him get all these checks for nothing. So you can give Militao a little bit and see how he feels.
Yeah, it is hard, especially coming back from injury, and then you feel like you're back, you're ready to play again, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're injured again. So what are we doing with this guy? Bench or loan
Yeah,
or
I'm
sell?
putting him on the bench and I'm not rushing him back. I'm letting him take his time and see if he can bounce back to 70, 80% of what he was.
Now we got Dani Ceballos, the midfielder, the Arsenal reject. What are we thinking we're doing with him?
Danny Ceballos has been inconsistent in his time in Madrid. He'll go on some good stretches and then he'll go on some very poor stretches. And there was about a month this season where he was looking like an elite midfielder. We don't understand why. He said he switched up his diet, he was probably training better, and he picked up in good form. But, after that injury, he came back. It looked like he was the same old Ceballos, but I would give him a chance to, be a rotational piece, a late match substitute, and just bring him in off the bench.
No, I agree, and I think one of the players that can benefit the most from Xavi being the coach is going to be Ceballos. Even though Ceballos is, he's not that young anymore, he, I see like there's a lot of qualities that Xavi can improve on him to become a very key player, like a key rotational player or a starter. So yeah, well, I agree with that one. Let's put him on the bench. Now, Raul Asensio, you guys needed a defender, and he stepped up. What are you gonna do with him? Is he gonna start? Is he gonna bench? Are you gonna loan him, or is
You
he even gonna play?
know, Madridistas love him. He has heart. You can't coach heart. He wants to win every single play, every
Right.
single game. That's something you love to see out of a player. And I feel as a coach, you really appreciate that. And I would start him if Danny Carvajal doesn't start as a right center back.
So for you, it's between Carvajal and Asensio.
Yeah, I don't think he's Carvajal is really competing with Trent. I think he's definitely going to be his rotation, but I think Carvajal and Asensio can definitely fight for that spot in the
Let's
back
go.
line.
Let's go. Yeah. No, I totally. Oh, we're
But I
gonna
would
put him
start. I would start Asensio
starter.
just off
No,
the
I think
youth
you're
and the
right.
legs.
Yeah, I think you're right. Everybody loves like a homegrown hero that fights for the shirt. that gives it all on the field, and that is Asensio. He does have great attributes to become a very very good defender. He's a fast player. And he's 23, 24, so he's still young. There is a lot of up in the air right now of his future, regarding those cases that are going on. But hopefully, it's like you say, hopefully nothing ever happened. He really didn't do anything, so he can continue his career and try to fulfill what he could potentially come and become that hero for a lot, kids, but also for the Madrid fans. Let's go with a goalkeeper, Looney.
Lunin, I'm honestly keeping him. I think he is, in my opinion, the best backup keeper in the world. He helped us in the La Liga championship, in the UCL championship. He got us all the way to the final. Courtois did come back healthy and he played that final, and gladly we won. But in my opinion, I think Lunin deserved that start. But he's came back a couple games, as a rotational player this season, and he looks good. If he's happy with his role, and if the team can work it out, I would keep him off the bench.
On the bench. All right, this one's interesting. It's rumored that Man City's looking at him. It's rumored that other clubs are looking at him. Rodrigo Gois. What do we do with Rodrigo?
I am keeping him, but he needs to earn his spot back into the starting 11. He has had some very memorable moments with Madrid, and those UCL nights, those amazing comebacks. But, those memories, that's all they are. They're in the past. We need you performing right now. And in my opinion, he's been the worst player, like underperforming wise, this season. And I have not given up on him. I think he's a very talented, versatile player. He could play the right mid position where Trent is going to be. He could play the forward. If there's wingers, he could play wing. It's he's just too good to let go. I would keep him off the bench, and hopefully he can get his spot back into the starting 11.
Do you think Rodrigo's going to want to be a bench player, a sub player, rotational player?
Well, you're playing in the greatest team in the history of the sport. You haven't been performing. You need to accept that. He came out in the reports, saying like, don't forget the R. Saying that he's also like a key player. He was putting the pressure on Ancelotti to start him, and I think that did get to Ancelotti. Hopefully, Xabi Alonso doesn't let that pressure get to him, and he does the best decision for the club. But right now, Rodrigo does not start.
Let's go with Lukita Modric. Obviously, we know that he's leaving at the end of the Club World Cup, but just give us a little recap of Luka Modric and how great of a baller he's been all these years.
Luka Modric is the most accomplished Real Madrid player of all time. He won a Ballon d'Or. He led Croatia to a World Cup final, which is just absurd because, there's not elite players coming out of Croatia. They always have good players, but, they never have that player, that's like the world's best, leading his team to the finals. And Modric did that. He is one of the greatest midfielders of all time. In my
Yeah.
opinion, he's Madrid's greatest midfielder of all time. He's a great captain. He was always team first. You need me coming off the bench, that's fine. You need me taking a pay cut, that's fine. I'm not going to play this game, that's fine. Modric has been a true example of what a captain has is, and I think Madrid will always remember him. They're always going to love him. This will always be his home. I would have gave him a lifetime contract, man. If he can't even move anymore, stay on the bench and just lead the team. Just give us a pep talk. I would have never let Modric leave this club, but I'm not Perez. I don't control this team, and if that's what they feel they need to do, then it is what it is. But it hurts. That man is a legend to this club and to the
Yeah.
football.
Yeah, especially Lucas was that type of player that was loved by any fan base because of the way he was on and off the pitch. He wanted to just play ball, and he was a player that played beautiful ball, dude. His passes, the way he could read the game, especially his exterior passes. To me, those were amazing. But Luka will be missed. Luka Modric will be missed in the high level. But we'll see what's next for his career. Another player that's been there's been talks about Mendy. What do we do with Mendy?
Mendy, if you can find a way to get him out, you sell him. He's injury prone. When he is 100% healthy, he is a good defender, but he's never been good on the offensive end of the game. He limits Vinicius a lot. Vini has to create all the offense on that side by himself. I think it's just his time is up in Madrid. It's time to go.
I agree. I agree. What about a canterano, Jacobo? Defender. He's played a couple of games. He's not looked so sharp, but then again, in the last, the was it the no, the second to the last game, he scored a goal to give Madrid life to maybe continuing the league.
Yeah, he scored a last second goal. It was an incredible moment, for him. He's had his shaky moments. He was looking like he didn't belong on this club, but he doesn't really make a lot of money. He's not expecting a starting spot. He doesn't even expect to play a whole lot of games. So if he's fine with that, you can keep him on the bench and see if he can develop to become a rotational piece. Or I don't ever see him starting on this team, but I would still keep him for now.
Or would you loan him?
No, I just write it out
Uh,
in case of injuries.
Brahim Diaz. At one point, he's great, especially like that game against Atletico Madrid. But then he doesn't get the opportunity. What do you do with him?
Raheem, he's very inconsistent. He's had memorable moments, but he'll go missing. Just the same case as Rodrigo. And I think he's a 10. Ancelotti was set on playing him as a right winger, or a right forward, but he gives me the impression that he's really a 10, like a Bellingham, like an Arda Güler. And I don't think he has a spot on this team unless it's just as a rotational player, a super sub kind of player. So I think you loan him out or sell him.
I agree. Loan or sell, especially if Rodrigo stays. Yeah, I don't see no opportunity for him. How happy this man announced that he was leaving the club. Lucas Vasquez.
I'm not going to judge his Real Madrid career off of this past season. He played the entire season out of position. He is an aging player, but he has been a great leader alongside Luka Modric as a captain. He announced that he's leaving the club, but he didn't make a big show. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He didn't want to take the spotlight away from a Modric, from an Ancelotti, which I respect a lot. He's always put the team ahead of his own personal interests, and he's very well respected in Real Madrid. It's just it wasn't his best season, and it's just not entirely his fault, and we can't blame him all for that. And I wish him the best in the rest of his career, but he's leaving.
No, that's true. I mean, as a Barca fan, Luca, extend 5 more years. It's fine. What about the young boy, the young baller that was supposed to be better than the great Lamine Yamal, Endrick?
Hendrick, this is a tricky one because, we have great forwards and Mbappe and Vinicius and Rodrigo. I think even Brahim is still a better forward than Hendrick right now, just off the experience. In his best interest, I think it would be a loan, but I would like to keep him as a rotational piece, but I think a loan will go a long way for him.
I think a loan to a mid-table team or a Juventus, who's reportedly been asking about him, would be perfect because he's going to get those minutes. He's going to get that exposure. He's going to get that contact with professional athletes at the higher levels in Europe. And I
Yeah,
think that's what he's missing. He has quality. He has speed. He's good. I mean, unfortunately, he's short, but for a 9. But outside of that, I mean, the guy's pretty good all around.
Yeah, he shows flashes of his talent. He shows that he deserves to be on this squad. And but it's just tough to crack that 11. You have to win games. We're not a team that's going to build a player up. To help him get experience. And I think going to a team where he can get a lot of minutes and gain valuable experience. And elite football. Because he came out of Brazil. I think it'll do wonders for his career.
Your guys' new signing, Dean Howson or Hyson,
I believe it's Hoyson.
Hoyson, yeah,
And I think he's starting.
starter for a fact, huh?
He's got the talent, the potential, the size. It seems like this is going to be an amazing signing. It seems like it's going to be a steal in the long run, and you've got to play him. You have to let him show that he belongs here, and I think he'll do great starting.
Yeah, Dean's now the 4th center back for the national team, which is just really good because if you follow his career, he actually came out of Malaga and he went to different clubs and didn't do great until he went to Bournemouth. And in Bournemouth, he just exploded. And, we all saw him play against Netherlands, and now Madrid's buying you, which has been your club, your dream club all this time. So we'll see. We'll see how he does, especially in a league like the Spanish league, where it's not too much of a physical running league. It's more of a possession league and that raw talent. So we'll see how he does. Trent Alexander, it seems like Liverpool is going to be receiving $5 million to let Trent go early so he can join Real Madrid for the Club World Cup. He's a starter, right?
Man, with all the money he's going to be earning, with Madrid paying Liverpool to let him play early, he's got to start. He's got to play every single match, be available. You cannot have a bad game. We have high expectations for you. We're gonna let him play in, hopefully, in a position that he will really exceed at. The right wing back, right midfield is not too demanding on defense. You can get away with being a very average, below average defender in that position. And he's got such great ability, creating offense, those long balls, those crazy curve balls that he sends up to the forwards. I think him and Mbappe will really click, and even Vinicius. Vinicius is a very quick player. I think he's gonna do wonderful in that position, and he's gotta earn his paycheck. He's getting paid a lot of money.
I'd be surprised if he plays in the midfield and kind of a hard plays in the right back. I wouldn't be surprised, but then again, you don't know. But I do think that he is going to struggle defensively, especially against like a Rafinha or somebody that has speed. But going forward is going to be interesting to see, man. Especially if Mbappe take advantage of the balls that Trent threats too, because yes, you're right. His passes, his crosses, they're really, really good. So if Mbappe can learn how to time a pass and not be offsides, oh my God, we're looking like a 60, 70-year goal,
Man,
year for
you're
Mbappe.
talking about the first 4 months Mbappe. You're not talking about
No,
European
it's still
Golden
the
Boy
same
Mbappe.
Mbappe. Go back to
Hey,
these last games. It's still the same Mbappe. But I don't think it's fully Mbappe's fault. I do believe that Madrid doesn't have the talent in the midfield to thread a ball through. And that's why he was always offside. Let's give it like 50-50. 50 was the midfielder, 50 was Mbappe. But then again, Mbappe is not a striker, brother. Mbappe is a winger. So the fact that he created these many chances, created these many goals, what can you say, dude? That's freaking awesome. Congratulations. You tip
yeah,
your hat off
winning a
there.
Winning a European Golden Boot in your arguably worst season is just insane. He broke so many records at Madrid, dropping hat tricks. It's just an insane debut.
Well, I think arguably the worst season for Madrid, not exactly Mbappe, and it's more of arguably the worst season for Madrid because of the hype that that was sold at the beginning of the year. That this team was going to win everything, every match they were going to play was going to be a 10-0.
Yeah,
And
this
they learned
ain't
real quick it wasn't like that.
this is not PSG. You're not home. You're not the hero. You're not expected to win every single year because the league is so easy. Here in La Liga, there's a fight between Real Madrid and Barca every single year, and then every now and then Atletico joins the fight. So you can't afford those rough 4 months. You're an amazing player. You're still going to get your numbers, but we've got to win games, and that's why it was a poor season.
Absolutely. No, I agree with what you're saying, Manny, and I agree with your start bench alone. Obviously, we start missing three players here that need to start. You can move any player from the bench, but we're missing like Herrera and maybe one or two more signings that Madrid are gonna do. With that said, Manny, we're gonna about sign up. You have anything you want to tell to the fans before we do?
Drop a comment. Who are you starting? Who are you selling? Who's on the bench? Let me know if we got El Ball knowledge, and I'll catch you on the next one. A la Madrid.
Don't say that, bro, because they're gonna be like elbow, 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 elbow. We're gonna have a million comments saying elbow. Anyways, hopefully you enjoy this video. If you do, make sure to like, share, subscribe, send it to anybody that has a lot of ball knowledge or not like Manny and I with that elbow knowledge, huh, Manny? Make sure to subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and we'll see you here next video.